ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਜੀ ਐਨ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਖਾਸ ਗੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਔਰ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਖਾਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਆਏ ਹੈ ਪੈਟ ਮੈਕਫੈਡਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਵੁਲਵਰਹੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਨੇ ਯੂ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਫਾਸਟ।
It's great to be here on the Sikh channel again. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਟਿਪ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ। ਉਹ ਹੈਲਥ ਟਿਪ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਵੀਕ ਦੇ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸੀ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਡਿਮਾਂਡ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਪੈਨ ਪੇਪਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੋਲ ਪੂਰੀ ਲਿਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਤੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਕਨਫਿਊਜ਼ਨ ਜੀ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਫੋਨ ਆਏ ਸੀ ਕੱਲ ਵੀ ਆਏ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਫਿਰ ਰਿਪੀਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਜਰੂਰ ਲਿਖ ਲਿਆ ਜੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਹੈ ਹੁਣ ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸੈਟਰਡੇ ਸੰਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਘਰੇ ਸ਼ਾਪਿੰਗ ਵੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੇ ਘਰੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਣਾ ਵੀ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਨਾ ਵੀਕ ਡੇਜ਼ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ 250 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ 250 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਮੇਥੀ ਦਾਣਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਨਾ ਯੈਲੋ ਜੇ ਕਲਰ ਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੇਥੀ ਦਾਣਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਸੌਖਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਗੂਗਲ ਤੇ ਅਗਰ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਮੇਥੀ ਦਾਣਾ ਵੀ ਲਿਖ ਦੋਗੇ ਨਾ ਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੰਦੇ
ਯੈਲੋ ਜੇ ਕਲਰ ਦਾ 250 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਆਮ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜੇ ਗਰੋਸਰੀ ਸ਼ਾਪ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇ 100 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਅਜਵਾਇਣ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਚ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿਚਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਕਾਲੀ ਜੀਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਲੈਣੀ ਹੈ 50 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੇਕ ਲੈਣਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਭੁੰਨ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਭੈਣ ਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਘਿਓ ਚ ਭੁੰਨਣਾ ਕਿ ਤੇਲ ਚ। ਮੈਂ ਘਿਓ ਤੇਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੁੱਕਾ ਹੀ ਭੁੰਨਣਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਘਿਓ ਤੇਲ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਬੜਾ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਤਲ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈਲਥੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਹੈਲਥੀ ਸਾਰਾ ਮੁੱਕ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਿੱਚ।
ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸੇਕਾ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਾਊਡਰ ਬਣਾ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਪਾਊਡਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਸੇਵ ਕਰ ਲਓ ਕਿਸੇ ਸ਼ੀਸ਼ੀ ਜਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਸੌਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗਰਮ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਣਗੁਣਾ ਵਾਰਮ ਵਾਟਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਚਮਚ ਛੋਟਾ ਚਮਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਪਾਊਡਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਕਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੀ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਜਦੋਂ ਪੀਓਗੇ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ 100 ਦਿਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਰੀਰ ਹਲਕਾ ਫੁਲਕਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਚੁਸਤੀ ਫੁਰਤੀ ਆਏਗੀ, ਵਾਧੂ ਚਰਬੀ ਘਟੇਗੀ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਲੱਡ ਦਾ ਸਰਕੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤੇਜ਼ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੋੜਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਦ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜੁਆਇੰਟ ਪੇਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਰਿਲੀਫ ਮਿਲੇਗੀ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਗਠੀਆ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਈਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਫ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਫ ਦੂਰ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਾਜ਼ਮਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਰਹੇਗਾ ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੇ ਕਬਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕੇਗੀ। ਕਬਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਤਾਂ ਕਈ ਬਿਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਿਆ ਸਕਦਾ। ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਚ ਗੁਣ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਤਵੱਚਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਕਿਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਬ੍ਰਾਈਟ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਸ਼ਾਈਨੀ ਕੋਈ ਝੁਰੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿਣਗੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਹੋਏਗੀ। 100 ਦਿਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਪਰ ਆਹ ਨੋਟ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਜੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਇਓ ਜੀ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
Yes, that's right. So a great recipe there. It's sort of health tip of the week rather than health tip of the day, Hananka, because we've had so many requests to tell us the recipe again. So it is methi da dane, ajwain, and it was gali jeeri. So we have to sort of roast it in a pan. And then we have to get the pestle and mortar and we have to bash it together, or you can grind it, whatever is easier. And then it's as simple as that and it's ready for you, and you simply take a teaspoon of that just before you go to bed. It's probably the best time because you're not really supposed to eat anything after. So you take a teaspoon of that and a glass of warm water and it's absolutely great for you. As Uncle said, it's very good for your general health and to help boost your immune system and to if you have a cough or anything like that, it's good for the throat and just to keep you going.
Yeah, ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕਰੀ ਜੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਥੀ ਦਾਣਾ 250 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਅਜਵਾਇਨ 100 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਤੇ 50 ਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਕਾਲੀ ਜੀਰੀ।
Yes, so 250 grams methi seeds, 100 grams ajwain and gali jeeri 50 grams. So that's simple.
ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੇ ਥੋਟ ਆਫ ਡੇ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਤਲਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਲਾਲੀ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਥੋਟ ਆਫ ਡੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ 'ਚ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਕੰਮਕਾਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਕਈ ਬੰਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੱਤਾਂ ਖਿੱਚਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਧੱਕਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਾਰਨਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਔਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਤਾਬ 'ਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੀ ਸਿਕੰਦਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਚੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਲੁੱਟਿਆ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹਾਰਿਆ ਵੀ ਸੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਹਾਰ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਜਾਣ ਲੱਗਾ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਨਿਢਾਲ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਇੱਕ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਬੈਠਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਮਕੌੜਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਹਾੜੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਚੜ੍ਹਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਡਿੱਗ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ ਡਿੱਗ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ 100 ਵਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਡਿੱਗਿਆ ਹੋਣਾ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਕੀੜਾ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਕੀੜਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਾਰਦਾ ਇਹ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਡਿੱਗਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਡਿੱਗਦਾ ਤੇ ਆਖਿਰਕਾਰ ਇਹ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਰੱਖਾਂ। ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਆਉਣਗੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਾਮਯਾਬੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਮਿਲੇਗੀ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, and I think a great example of that as well is Baba Deep Singh ji as well, ਹੁਣੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਨਮ ਦਿਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ, and even ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ
ਜੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ,
ਸੀਸ
ਮਤਲਬ
ਕੱਟਿਆ ਗਿਆ
ਸੀਸ
ਸੀਗਾ,
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ
but
ਦਾ
he
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ,
carried on.
ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ
Yes.
ਫਾਈਟ ਕੀਤੀ, ਲੜਾਈ
That's
ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹ
probably
ਜਿੱਤੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ।
one of the best examples in
Yeah.
Sikhi, that Baba Deep Singh ji. So the whole message of today, the thought of the day, is to never give up. It's a simple thought, but to actually put that in practice is quite harder, because it's so easy to get knocked down when you're doing things. And I think our guests can probably talk about that today as well. I mean, you have a lot of struggles, but it's so important not to give up.
ਹੋਰ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। ਫਸਟ ਆਫ could you tell us about your background please?
My background, you can probably tell from my accent. I was born and raised in Scotland.
Okay.
Yes.
I have Irish parents. My parents came from Ireland to start a new life in Scotland way back in the 1950s.
Okay.
But I've lived in England now for really all my post-education life and worked in a number of roles before becoming the MP for Wolverhampton.
Okay.
South East 11 years ago. I worked at number 10 Downing Street for Prime Minister Tony Blair. I was his political director there.
Okay.
And that was...
When did you start your political career?
Well, formally in terms of election, 11 years ago, I was elected MP for Wolverhampton South East, which of course is one of the largest Sikh communities in the country, in Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been involved in politics for a long time before that, working for Tony Blair and going way back for his predecessor, John Smith,
Yes,
for whom I served as a speechwriter many years ago. So my involvement in politics goes back a long time, but as an MP, 11 years for Wolverhampton.
Is politics something you fall into, or is it's a choice? It's a life choice, I suppose, but is it something you sort of thought, oh, I'll give that a go, or is it something you really
As an
want
interest, I think it's a life choice.
to do? Yeah.
You know, I was always interested in it as a young person. I think the chance to work at number 10 was a big chance in life, and to work for a successful Prime Minister who got elected 3 times.
Yes,
which is a long way from where we are at the moment.
And did you work the whole time sort of with Tony
Most
Blair
of it,
while he was in?
not so much during the third term, because
Right.
in his third term I was an MP and a minister, but the first 2 terms I was there for most of the time. But in terms of election, it isn't just about a choice. It's Jim Callaghan, the former Prime Minister, his autobiography was called Time and Chance, and it is about time and chance, and the chance came up to get elected in Wolverhampton.
But I heard that you were on the Sikh from the Labour Party. What was the reason behind that?
Why did you choose Labour?
Why did I choose Labour?
Yeah.
Well, it was really my background. I came from a working class background.
Yeah.
My dad was a labourer on the building sites around Glasgow. A lot of Irish men worked in that kind of occupation at the time.
Yeah.
My mum worked in the local council children's home. We came from a very ordinary background, 7 kids, probably quite familiar to a lot of your viewers, you know, we're an immigrant family, and so Labour was the natural choice for us. It seemed to represent working people. It seemed to be about, you know, for the people that weren't born into wealth and had a lot of money and so on, and so it was really a natural choice, and I've been with Labour
And
ever
since
since.
you made the decision.
And I heard that the Sikh from the Labour Party recently. What was the reason behind that?
Sorry.
And the recently you sacked from the Labour Party. What was the reason behind
No,
that?
I wasn't sacked from the Labour Party. I was on the front bench as Mr Corbyn's Europe spokesman. And look, I'll be honest, sometimes you have more in common with some leaders than others.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for Mr Corbyn. I didn't nominate him for leader. He wasn't my choice, but I made a decision when he became leader. I was the Europe spokesman for the Labour Party. We've got a referendum coming up. I think this is a hugely important decision for the country. So I thought I would stay on as Europe spokesperson. He asked me to do so when he got elected. But then a few months later, he's made a different decision. Look, I'm I'm a football man. I understand the manager gets to pick the team.
Yes.
And if he wanted to make that change, that's fine, and it's a few weeks ago. The only thing I would say is I've been really grateful for the messages of support that I've had from my constituents. Because I spoke out quite strongly on one or two issues, particularly after the Paris terrorism attack.
There was something you said, wasn't it, about sort of terrorism? There's a quote that keeps coming up that you said.
I mean, I took the view that when these things happen, I think sometimes there's a reaction where people say, what was it the West did to make these people angry? And I don't think that's the first question we should ask, because I think you can't treat terrorists as children. People are adults. They're responsible for what they do, and if they kill innocent people, they're responsible for what they do. And you know, I don't see the world as the West are the adults and everybody else is the children. Apart from anything else, I think it ignores the fact that power's shifting in the world. Power's shifted from West to East. You know, we're dealing with a world of adults and adults now.
Absolutely.
And so I spoke out quite strongly about that. I condemned these acts very strongly. He took a bit of a different view of this. He's entitled to do so. So we had a disagreement on substance about this, but sometimes in politics you have to stand up for what you believe in.
I think that's what it is all about, isn't it, politics?
And that's what I did over this, and I don't regret doing it. And on the Europe front, I still want to be involved in that in any way I can, because I do think it's important.
So you can talk about your more recent sort of what you've been up to. So you've been talking about EU discussion, about UK being in the EU. I mean, what's the outcome of that? What's being discussed at the moment?
Well, we're going to have a referendum
Yes.
in the next few months, possibly in June of this year. We don't know. It depends if the Prime Minister gets a deal in Brussels. He's in Brussels today, I think, talking about that. This is a hugely important decision for the United Kingdom. You know, we've been members of the EU for 40 plus years.
Why has it come back up? Why is it being...
Well, it came back up. It was a pledge from the Conservatives to have such a referendum if they won the election, so that's why we're having it. The European Union's not perfect. It's got a lot of troubles right now with the refugee crisis and economic problems and so on. But it's our main trading partner. You know, over 40% of British exports go to European Union countries. We do more trade with Ireland every year, a country of about 5 million people, than we do with China. So it's really, you know, in perspective, it's really, really important to us. An awful lot of jobs in the UK are dependent on this trade. We get a lot of investment into the country because we are part of the European Union. Look at our car industry, for example, that's happened there. So I think it's really important. But it's not just about economics. You know, I think Britain should be a country with a seat at the top table. You know, we are permanent members of the UN Security Council. We're members of NATO. We're members of the Commonwealth. We're members of the European Union. We wouldn't be saying the United Nations isn't perfect, so I think we'll resign from it. You know, we wouldn't do that. The EU is not perfect, but it's an important organisation in the world, which we've been a member of for 40 years. And it's got values that we should defend too. You have to be committed to democracy, to good human rights, to freedom of speech. These things are valuable. So I think the case for staying in is about our interests, yes, but it's also about our values and who we are. So this is a campaign that I'm deeply committed to. And, you know, for example, I was in Dublin the other day making a speech about this, where people in Ireland are very interested in the decision the UK will make. So even from the backbenches, this is something I'm determined to still be a part of, and will do my best to speak up for this cause over the next few months.
Will you be quite involved in it? I mean, will you have that chance to actually sort of say your opinion and get your views across?
Well, yeah, I will. You know, after the reshuffle, actually, I was elected by my fellow MPs as co-chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party's group for staying in. So, you know, I'm glad to be part of that. That includes 214 of the 232 Labour MPs. That gives you some sense of where the balance of opinion in Labour is. So, as with the speech on Dublin and, you know, other things I can do, I'll keep speaking up for this because I think it's important.
Mr. Paramjit Singh was arrested in Portugal. What do you stand about that?
Well, I know there's a lot of concern about Mr. Paramjit Singh's case. The MP for Mr. Singh is John Speller, my colleague, and he's doing a fantastic job on this, making representations at all levels of government. But of course, all of us who represent a big Sikh community have had representations from our own constituents. So over Christmas, I wrote to the Foreign Secretary about this, saying there was great concern in the community. And the specific question I posed was, what is the protection given by the UK government to someone who's been granted leave to remain here in the UK? Because that is the case with Mr. Singh. And now, after the court hearing on Tuesday of this week, this case has been passed to the Portuguese Justice Minister for consideration. So I'll be writing again to our government, saying that now that it's with the Justice Minister, what representations are the UK government going to make to the Justice Minister? Because actually a government-to-government dialogue is probably more appropriate than politicians involving themselves in a court process. So I think this is the appropriate stage of it to make representations to government.
And do you think we'll be able to make an impact on this? Do you think we'll be able to because John Speller, I know he is doing what he can actually, because he's said a lot about, we're not protecting him enough. I mean, do you think we'll be able to change what's going on and we'll be able to get our views across on this?
Well, we'll have to see, but I think it's important to remember that some allegations around this were already gone through by the British police before Mr. Singh was granted his leave to remain. So I think that should be brought to the attention of the Portuguese authorities. And what strikes me about this is, he's lived in the UK for a long time. The allegations being made are serious. But if the Indian government had evidence of those, why was such an application not made to the UK government here when he's been living here for years? I think it is appropriate for MPs to take this up, particularly as it's now with the Portuguese Justice Minister. John Speller will lead on this, as he should rightfully, because he's the MP, but other MPs like me with a big Sikh community can also make representations about this.
Can you talk about your your role as the Wolverhampton MP and what you're doing at the moment,
Well, it's a great honour to represent a constituency which is very diverse, multi-faith, as I said, a very big Sikh community. Probably the biggest issue that I'm facing since the new year concerns Cosley School in Dudley. This is a local secondary school. It's been struggling with results. It doesn't have enough pupils. There's not enough take-up of the available spaces. And so Dudley Council have decided to close the school, at least for a few years, until they project pupil numbers are going back up and put something else in its place. So while the school has been struggling, any school closure is very, very emotive. So the parents are very angry about this. I've met with them twice, once 2 weeks ago, again last week with the council leader. I know there's a lot of concern about this in the community. And I've always been passionate about education. And so on this issue, and on any educational issue I take up, I say, if the school's been struggling, if there is to be a future here for a school, we can't have one that's consistently performing below the national average. We've got to have one that's doing the very best for its pupils, because there are few things more important than giving children the best possible education and the best chance in life. And I think that's probably more true today than it's ever been before. So education is a big, big passion of mine.
And as you mentioned, you're talking about the Sikh community. You are actually quite heavily involved in the Sikh community, aren't you? I mean, how does that come about? As obviously you're not Sikh yourself, but to be so involved in the Sikh community, and I understand you make the parliamentary Vaisakhi announcement as well. I mean,
Wolverhampton has a huge Sikh community. It's an MP's job to represent every part of the community, and I always think that MPs should learn from their constituents too. And I've learned a bit about Sikhi and about the values of the Sikh faith over the years. I think it's a hugely positive religion, makes a great contribution to the United Kingdom. So, I visited the Golden Temple quite soon after becoming elected. I was an incredible experience
Yeah.
that will always stay with me. And I have hosted the Vaisakhi celebrations in Parliament for some
Yes.
years. I'll be doing that again this year.
Right.
In conjunction with the British Sikh Consultative Forum, who are the partner organisation for that. And we have a great commemoration of Vaisakhi there. We're going to host it again in the Speaker's Apartments, which is a fantastic venue within Parliament. I'm very grateful to the Speaker for allowing us to do that. And it's an all-party event. I
Yeah.
invite politicians from right across the spectrum and leading figures in the Sikh community, and I believe Parliament should represent every part of the country.
Yes.
And this Festival of Vaisakhi is so important to the Sikh community
Absolutely.
that I'm very glad to be able to bring it to the heart of our democracy every year, and again in April this year.
No, I think that's brilliant, yeah. And then talking about sort of whatever time you have left, I mean, what do you get up to? What sort of, do you have a personal life? Do you ever get time to sort of do
Non-politics.
anything yourself?
It's a pretty full-on life,
Yeah.
being a politician. If you're not in Parliament, you're doing things in the constituency. But I'm very lucky in my personal life. I have a wife and 2 lovely children.
Yeah.
So most of my time is spent with them. I try to do a little bit of exercise, a little bit of running now and again, but not as much
Have you
as
not
I
seen
should.
our exercise show?
Yeah,
It's a
seen
great,
it.
it's a
I should
great
be
thing to
watching
get
your
you,
exercise
to get you
show.
started for the day. You've got a
what
great
I should-
exercise show
That's what
for
I
you.
should be doing. I don't do it as much as I should.
Yeah.
So I need to do that more. But you know, outside politics, you know, family is very valuable.
Yep.
And the end of show, would you like to give any message for the audience?
What would be your last few comments, last message?
My message would just be that the Sikh community is a fantastic part of British society. I'm very honoured to be an MP representing a constituency with a big Sikh community. I'm very grateful for the friendship and support that community has shown to me, and I hope it continues.
Do you think
Thank you.
at the end of the show you'll be able to say Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Oh yes,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh?
yeah.
Just as we end
You
the show,
say,
just right at the
Waheguru Ji
end.
Ka Khalsa।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Oh, brilliant.
ਜੀ
Thank
ਮੈਂ
you.
ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ ਵੱਲ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਲਵਾਂਗੇ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਵੀਕ ਹੀ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਹੈ,
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ
that's right.
ਵੀਕਐਂਡ ਹੈ ਤੇ
Yes.
ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਲੰਡਨ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਸੁਣ ਸਕੋਗੇ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ। ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਥੈਂਕਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੈਣੇ ਆ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਸੋਮਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਵਾਂਗੇ ਬ੍ਰੇਕਫਾਸਟ ਸ਼ੋਅ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਚੈਨਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ,
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।